me back to the place I know, with the mystery shack and the forest gnomes. I'm already packed, so come on, let's go. Don't get me started, my heart's in Gravity Falls. Welcome to Mystery Shack Look Back, a nostalgic time capsule and no-spoiler book club of the original Gravity Falls fandom. We are your curators. I'm Ella.
I'm Charlie.
Charlie.
Hi, Ella.
Do you give a damn about your reputation?
Ella, I just want to tell you that you're living in the past. I'm in a new generation.
Okay. All right. Well, you know what? A girl can do what she wants to do.
That's what you're going. Just like you. Wait, are you a girl?
I know, and I can do what I want to do.
But are you afraid of any deviation?
No. No way. Not me.
I disagree. I know you fairly well. You're quite afraid of any deviation.
Not me.
You have refused to make a DeviantArt account saying, I'm not a deviant. I will make a law-abiding citizen art account.
Yeah, and then I come upon the gallery pieces that are called deviations, and I'm like, ah!
I do not want to look at any deviations. I am a good girl. Ella, what are we talking about?
Well, ideally, we're talking about the Gravity Falls episode, The Inconveniencing, which is Season 1, Episode 5, premiering on July 13th, 2012. Let's just go, let's just speed on ahead, buckle up.
And no punching the roof while we're buckled up.
Yes, please.
Tomorrow.
Mabel, do you believe in ghosts?
Buckle up for Disney Channel's Summer Adventure Weekend with an all-new Gravity Falls.
There it is, fellas.
Why did they shut it down? It's like a health code violation, or?
Try murder. The place has been haunted ever since.
Find out what possesses the dusk to dawn.
What was that? Thought I heard some lady screaming back here.
What do we do? Quick, in there!
Hey, ghost! I've got something to tell you!
And who will live to text about it?
Whoa!
Status update?
On an all-new Gravity Falls, tomorrow at 9:30, 8:30 Central. Part of Summer Adventure Weekend on Disney Channel.
So we just watched The Inconveniencing.
Would it be redundant at this point to say a really good episode? Because we say that every single time. But that being said, this is a really good episode.
Absolutely.
We are formally introduced to Wendy, who is the cashier at the Mystery Shack. We briefly met her in the first episode, Tourist Trap, but here, she's the focus.
Yeah, she has some bit moments throughout these first 4 episodes, but here we are formally introduced.
This is the episode that, as the staff has stated it, one of the goals is trying to get you to fall in love with Wendy.
Mm-hmm.
The character of Wendy is based on, basically Alex went to the crew and said, who was the coolest person you knew as a kid? And they kind of join all of those ideas together.
Mm-hmm.
They described her as kind of the camp counselor archetype, like the cool camp counselor, like Bill Murray and Meatballs, sort of, where she is a friend to the kids, but also has adult responsibilities and serves as this idea of what a kid wants adulthood to be like.
Yeah, where you have the access to the adult world, but still have the spirit of fun of a kid. And she's voiced by Linda Cardellini, most known for Freaks and Geeks, but I think listeners would probably recognize her as Velma in the live-action Scooby-Doo films.
We were quite a crew back then. That was the best time of my life. And Daphne, so beautiful. She was the coolest girl at Coolsville High.
Well, but that is also to kind of play on her recognizability from Freaks and Geeks. In Freaks and Geeks, she plays a Velma that becomes a Wendy. She plays a mathlete, a competitive mathematician who has an existential crisis, drops out of mathlete tournaments, and starts experimenting with different countercultures.
Today's the deadline to enter the academic decathlon. Mr. Rosso said you didn't turn your application.
What? Millie, I'm not entering.
But you're our best mathlete.
Could we not talk about this right now?
Lindsay, what's wrong with you?
There's nothing wrong with me. I just don't want to do decathlon this year.
Her best known roles to our listeners are two different facets of Lindsay Weir in Freaks and Geeks.
Yeah.
She is fantastic. I believe it was Joe Pitt who said
Linda Cardellini brought so much of that too, because like we grew up watching Freaks and Geeks, and it was just like she was that, and what boy couldn't have a crush on that? So it was like, how can you embody that in a drawing?
Oh, you know what else she's in nowadays that listeners will recognize?
Oh, right! She's Hawkeye's wife!
Yeah.
I think you could basically take any actor and say, here's where you would know them from the MCU.
At this point, yeah, but I do think it's...
like Toby Determined fires Ant-Man.
Yes, that's true. But it is like, she is in the highest grossing movie of all time, so I think that's worth mentioning.
In fact, a huge plot point.
That's true, because she calls him, and that's how...
is that she disappeared.
Yeah. And she's the first person that gets brought back, that we realize is back. Spoilers for this 2-year-old movie that that pretty much everyone on Earth has seen.
Everyone on Infinite Earths. No, wait, that's DC. I think Wendy is the perfect foil to Dipper.
Oh yeah, I love their dynamic in this episode, or at least the dynamic that gets introduced in this episode.
In a lot of ways, she's a very similar character to Dipper. Like, all of the introverts I know who watch this show are like, am I Dipper or am I Wendy?
Mm-hmm. But it makes total sense why, like, the crux of this episode is basically Dipper developing a huge crush on Wendy. But I think it makes total sense, and it works outside of, like, this show needs a love interest. Because on a character level, Dipper is constantly full of anxiety and social awkwardness. And seeing this person who, like, in the first scene of this episode, like, takes them to, like, the secret hangout spot on the roof of the Mystery Shack, leaps off of a tree, like, bends it down to reach the ground from the roof, and then gets into a van with all of her friends. Like, this person who seems effortlessly cool and has lots of friends, Dipper is, of course, instantly magnetized to this person, because that is who he wants to be, in a way.
And I think she finds a place as a character of her own as the series progresses, but I think she is also just the perfect vision board for Dipper, basically. Like he wants to be Wendy. When you are 12, it's very difficult to tell the difference between, you know, who you aspire to be and the concept of a crush.
Exactly. So he conflates the feelings and is like, I guess I'm in love with you.
Do I want to be this person, or do I want to kiss them?
Is it gender envy?
It's gender envy. Can we be real?
It might be gender envy.
It's absolute. I was trying not to say it.
No, I mean, elephant in the room. It's gender envy.
The episode that was supposed to introduce Wendy as the girl that Dipper doesn't know that much about and has a huge crush on was supposed to be the first episode, and supervising producer Rob Renzetti supervised and produced and said to Michael Rionda and Alex Hirsch, "It's your first episode!" You know, the audience has to fall in love with the characters before they fall in love with each other, basically, is the idea behind
that. And I can't really picture the kind of tone that it would set if there was this kind of... Obviously, there is a romance plot with Mabel almost every other week, but with Dipper, it feels different, and I don't know how that would affect the tone of the show if that was in the first episode.
I really like that he has been her coworker for like a month before he even notices her. That's very, very prepubescent.
Well, and it's a very, I think it's a slow burn. I think it takes Mabel making him realize that it is a crush, with a great joke of him laying awake at night thinking about Wendy and being like, oh, yeah. But Mabel, it's actually interesting, though, now that I think about it, because Dipper doesn't understand his feelings until Mabel teasingly explains them to him. But Mabel sees everything through the lens of summer romance, because that's what she sets out to do in the first episode, so...
Yeah. If Mabel had not put the word crush to describe it, there is a chance Dipper would find comfort in the term role model.
Mm-hmm. Or maybe just wouldn't address it because he's socially anxious.
Yeah.
He would just keep it in there forever and then he'd die.
So, Legend of the Gobblewonker was written by Alex Hirsch and Michael Rianda rewriting each other's drafts of different scenes. This one was written in a more traditional way of Michael Rianda wrote a draft and Alex cleaned it up. The episode comes in at only 20 minutes long because Alex removed so much.
Yeah, I think it's one of the, if not the shortest episode in pure runtime.
And the most Michael Rianda episode. Almost everything that happens in this episode is based on something he does or some part of his life.
Yep, he's all over it in a great way.
Wendy has 5 friends. 2 of them are voiced by Michael Rianda. Lee, who is the tall blonde one, is Michael Rianda's normal voice. And Thompson, who is the Thompson. Thompson is also almost his normal voice. Like, when they're off screen, I can't tell which character is talking.
Mm-hmm.
But these all 5 of them are based on Michael Rianda's friend group.
And it makes so much sense because they're so real. Like, they feel like they're not stereotypical teens. They're like...
No.
I mean, they behave very similarly, but they are...
I would say Tambry is and Robbie is in this episode.
Yes. But I think they act like stereotypical teens, but the kind that you might meet in real life and not the ones that you would only see on TV.
I like the detail that only one of them has their license. That's kind of how I remember teen friend groups going.
Yeah.
Punching the roof was something that actually happened to Michael Rianda's parents' car. There's several moments in this episode where the characters will just chant things.
Yep, that's a Michael Rianda thing. He probably still does that all the time.
Every time they have to take a break for lunch in the writer's room of Gravity Falls, Michael Rianda will lead them in a chant of lunch, 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 lunch.
Yeah, so they chant like every 2 minutes in this episode.
And it's great. It's really funny.
There's also the plot point of when Dipper was a child, Dipper and Mabel's parents would dress him in a lamb costume and make him do the Lammy Lammy dance. And that is real. That is inspired by an actual thing that Michael Rianda's sister would force him to do.
His older sister, yeah.
That's not us airing out Michael Rianda's dirty laundry. Michael Rianda has admitted to this on Twitter.
Wrote this episode to air out his dirty laundry. Rob Renzetti just sounds so disappointed when Alex and Michael tell him this was based on something from my real life. He's like, why? Why would this happen to anyone? And yeah, so this episode so much has Michael Rianda's fingerprints on it that it is directed by SpongeBob writer, storyboarder, director Aaron Springer, literally just because he is Michael Rianda's idol as far as animation goes.
There's definitely touches where you can tell that Aaron Springer is involved, knowing what his style is like.
Yeah, Aaron Springer directed Band Geeks and
Krusty Krab training video. Yeah.
Among many others, but
basically any iconic SpongeBob episode, Aaron Springer's probably involved in some way, whether that's storyboarding or writing or directing.
Mm-hmm. And he came up with, it seems like he did a lot more than the details of director would normally entail. Because there is a scene where Mabel has expired Fun Dip, which is called Smile Dip here. And
basically gets high. I think we could say that.
Yeah, she has a hallucination brought on by expired sugar, according to Alex. Because Alex constantly has to come up with terms to tell S&P, like, to make something sound less adult.
Mm-hmm.
The hallucinations are largely from the mind of Aaron Springer. Aaron Springer did a Flash animation in 2001 called Mr. Seed.
It's about a little guy.
About a little guy who licks a strawberry and believes it gives him superpowers, but in actuality, it has just made him hallucinate.
And there's a very similar kind of cut where we see the hallucination and then we see what the character's really doing, which is just kind of sitting there with giant pupils. So that happens to Mabel as well.
And in one of Mabel's hallucinations, she is riding a dolphin with a big beefy arm coming out of the back of his neck there. 4 of them, one coming out of each of his 2 faces, and then one from each of the 2 backs of his necks he has gained from having 2 heads. And Mabel says,
Onward, Sayoshima!
Kana Yoshima is a real person who's directed most of the episodes up till this point.
Yeah. And the car alarm coming out of the dolphin we felt was very SpongeBob-like, so
Yeah.
possibly also Aaron Springer was involved.
Yeah, I mean, I know it's just the super Alex Hershey thing of just randomly placing your idols everywhere, but I think he's a great choice for this episode.
Yeah, it works really well, and I think balances out the emotional coming-of-age side really nicely. Because a lot of the episode is about the awkward in-between zone of being 12, and I think this is actually the first episode that we confirm in the show that Dipper and Mabel are 12.
This episode has the origin of the word 12. If you're wondering why we use that instead of 2-teen, it comes from this episode. I'm lying to you, by the way.
But no, Dipper, in an effort to try to blend more in with Wendy and her friends when they take a trip to this abandoned convenience store, lies and says that he and Mabel are 13 and therefore technically teens.
Yes, and that lie is kind of the reason the whole episode is able to happen. Like, if he had not told that lie, there would not be a conflict here.
I think ultimately he is worried that Wendy will not be as accepting of him socially as she turns out to be. Yeah, he gets caught up in his own anxiety and is constantly trying to prove himself that he is not, just a child.
So the eventual reveal, the supernatural moment that ties in with the emotional and character aspects of the episode is that the convenience store is haunted by ghosts that have not moved on to the next life because their hatred of teenagers is so strong.
Right, because teenagers basically killed them.
The first time that this elderly couple, the owners, proprietors, and sole employees of the Dusk to Dawn convenience store, heard of rap music, they instantly had heart attacks and died, and have dedicated their afterlife to getting revenge on teenagers.
Mm-hmm.
Which includes Dipper, until he is emotionally honest and vulnerable and himself in front of both the villains, but also Wendy.
Yeah, and then he ends up, the Lammy dance being a Chekhov's lamb.
A Chekhov's dance, as Chekhov was wont to do.
So at this point, we have figured out, I think there's a line in the third episode, Headhunters, where they describe the living wax figures that they fought, and Stan just goes, you kids and your imaginations. So at this point, we understand that
it's literally built into the character designs of the show. The reason Dipper is given a vest in every episode is so every time Grunkle Stan enters the scene, he can hide the journal.
Yeah, that basically Stan is removed from supernatural storylines. So in pretty much every episode thus far, because he can't see the weirdness, they do B-plot. Stan does something funny. And this is the best one, objectively.
In Gobblewonker, we have him trying to bond with strangers, which gives us some of the show's best jokes, such as her aim is getting better.
There, we finally mentioned it.
Yeah, we got flack about not mentioning it. What is there to say? It's funny.
It's funny. I'll say it twice. It's funny.
In Hand That Rocks the Mabel, we have his personality kind of contrast with the other business owner in town, but contrast in that they become best friends.
Yes. But here we have Stan home alone while the kids are at the haunted convenience store, and the TV is stuck on the black and white period piece Old Lady Boring Movie channel, and Stan refuses to stand up, so he can't find the remote, and is stuck watching The Duchess Approves.
This is also a problem that could be resolved with just choosing to stand up, but he's too stubborn.
So Stan is stuck watching The Duchess Approves, the film starring Sturley Stumbleburgess as the Duchess and Grampton St. Rumthorfrabble as...
right, as a irascible coxswain Saunterblucket Hopter Fuppenshire, right?
Yes, that one.
And he just gets too into it, end of joke.
But it's so good. Like, I never get tired of it. I wish there was 20 minutes dedicated to it.
I love these very New York City reactions to very British.
Like drama, yeah.
Count Lionel? What's he doing here?
I've come to reclaim my bride.
You had your chance at the cotillion, you!
You had your chance at the cotillion, you!
That's what I'm saying!
So you brought up an excellent point when we were watching this, though, that we do see how Lee, Nate, Thompson, and Tambry are whisked away by the ghosts and why they don't see the Lammy dance. We don't get any info on why Robbie is not present at that moment. Thompson and Lee are voiced by Michael Rianda. Tambry and Nate are both voiced by voice actors that are in everything.
Mm-hmm.
Robbie is voiced by TJ Miller, who was fairly well known at this point, which from a casting point alludes to the fact that the character might be more important. But for any other reasons why the character might be important, we don't know yet, but we can conspire, if only there were a designated area for it.
Ladies and gentlemen, right this way to the Hall of Conspiracy.
Welcome to the Hall of Conspiracies.
Sorry it's a little cramped. There's a lot more of you than we thought there would be today.
So there's a lot to talk about in this one.
Yeah, I think the thing that is most visually apparent is that, so if you recall from our Tourist Trapped episode, we talked about the wheel of symbols that flashes for a second at the end of the theme song.
So in this episode, we see what may be the two remaining symbols.
Up until this point, every symbol on this wheel had been accounted for in some way, and here we get the ice bag, because there is a scene where Dipper has to go get some more ice bags out of the freezer, and it has that exact design. And we also see the stitched up heart symbol that is on Robbie's hoodie.
There's something going on here. He's voiced by a celebrity. He has one of the key symbols of show.
And then there's also there's a dynamic with him specifically with Dipper that he's set up in this episode that
he tells him he's acting like Dr. Buzzkill. A protagonist would not say that to another protagonist.
No. And also he is the one who is he's really the only one of the group that, like, isn't immediately totally cool with Dipper.
One of the most popular fan theories, we were able to find it posted by Embarrassing Username on Tumblr.
I love Embarrassing Username because it's like they knew they were going to get quoted on a podcast someday.
As well as in the TV Tropes Wild Mass guest page. So, in Tourist Trapped, it is said that because of their pale skin and bad attitudes, zombies are often mistaken for teenagers. We did not actually meet a zombie in that episode. It was a fake out. But in this episode, we sure as heck...
Robbie is a pale teen with a bad attitude. And as a bonus, they say his name could be a shout-out to Rob Zombie, if Robbie is a zombie.
Which TV Tropes just phrases as, I see what you did there, with hypertext that links just to the page for Rob Zombie.
So the Embarrassing Username speculates that Robbie could potentially be a villain later on in the series, because, he's on this wheel of symbols with other notable characters, and they think that Robbie's true nature will be revealed during the season finale as a funny bookend to the first episode, which also had to do with people possibly being zombies.
In Thompson's van, there is a bunch of graffiti that his friends have written all over the car with permanent marker.
Mm-hmm.
One of them reads Zombies Rule.
The other bits of graffiti involve, like, a piece of graffiti that we know Robbie also did on the Gravity Falls water tower and Robbie's name, so there's kind of the implication that all of it is Robbie.
YouTuber Blarg Alt also posted a video pointing out that when Das Flavor Pups, the mascots of Smile Dip, are talking to Mabel, it sounds like gibberish. But it is actually reversed. It's kind of hard to make out.
Well, their interpretation is that it is, must distrust Grunkle? Must distrust Grunkle?
This kind of ties in with the cryptogram in the intro, in the Wheel of Symbols that says Grunkle Stan is not what he seems. Speaking of cryptograms, the one at the end of this episode reads, Onwards Aoshima. It's funny that Onwards Aoshima shows up in like one of the first not Aoshima directed episodes.
Yeah. It's a good joke, though. If you want to find more episodes of this podcast, go to our host network, pipedreampodcast.com, where you can find other shows like Escape from Walt Disney, How Did This Not Get Made, and Come On for Hooglepods.
While you're there, you can find links to our show's social medias and Discord server. You can also contact us at mysteryshacklookback@gmail.com. What we would love to see from you is if you have old posts that you feel would be a good fit for the Hall of Conspiracies.
Yeah. Or even, like, I don't think they even necessarily have to be theories. I think they could just be little artifacts of the fandom that we could highlight.
Yeah, show us anything. Show us your fan art. Show us your cosplays.
Yeah.
Show us your remixes.
Thanks to Pry Brian for making the instrumental for our theme song and for voicing Stan in the Hall of Conspiracies intro. Thanks to Sim and the Dim Bulb V2-0 for making the instrumental of the Hall of Conspiracies intro.
That theme song Ella made.
How does it go? Goes a little like... Oh, I remember now. Take me back to the place I know with the mystery shack and the forest gnomes. I'm already packed, so come on, let's go. Don't get me started. My heart's in Gravity Falls.
I'm Susan, you're watching the whoops, Dingo channel. That's not right.
I dropped the thingy.
Hey, it broke. Hey, you know what? I'll just pick up this stuff. Oh, looks tasty. Hey, you're supposed to eat the inside of a glow stick? Just kidding, I already did it.
Oh, I gotta sit down.